Actually, my friends call me Liv. My enemies call me Doc Ock. My name is Matthew Kroll.
And we don't pick the ballroom. We just dance. My name is Shahir Dowd.
And this is the only podcast about movies, specifically the film I could not wait to do, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
A lot of energy in the room right now.
A lot of energy. I had 2 sips of coffee.
A lot of love I'm feeling.
I finally got to see Miles Morales thrown into the mainstream for the first time.
Wow, this is I feel like I should just sit back and chill, and you can just run this.
Get ready. I've opened a dimensional portal for 5 different versions of me.
Oh my god, I couldn't think of anything worse than
How
that.
exhausting.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
be?
I just bouncing from wall to wall.
Oh
basically.
my god, the Spider-Ham version of me would be insufferable.
Why was his hands wet? That actually kept me up at night. When he came up, he goes, "My hands are wet." I was like, "Why are they wet?" I just didn't know.
You don't know. You don't know. Yeah, this has been a long time coming for me. Though I will say, when this film was announced and that Sony would be helming it, of course, I was trepidatious.
Even with the pedigree of Phil Lord and Chris Miller?
Well, yes, because the first trailer for this dropped.
Yeah.
And I was not thrilled.
Yeah.
I know you don't watch trailers, but it just was super benign feeling, and I don't know if it wasn't quite done or they just wanted to tease. I don't know what they wanted to quite tease in that first trailer. The second trailer, though, just switched me right around. It was sort of like I don't know, a transformative 180 magic trick that got me right back on board. So I didn't quite know. I've had flip-flopping sort of previewing opinions, and God, I mean there's so much to talk about with this movie, and I could sort of go on and on and on, which I will.
Yeah,
but Shahir,
I'm just going to let you run with
No.
this. No, I will say one thing. As I watched the trailer for the first time after I saw the movie.
Okay.
And I'm very glad that I didn't watch the trailer before the movie, because I felt the problem with the trailer was great, as in it's cut really well, and it gives you a good flavor for the movie. It also just gives you too much information, which is what and I don't begrudge the trailer companies for doing that and the studios for doing that. I just love my experience, which is going in and experiencing all that stuff for the first time in the context of the movie. Yeah. That's what I want.
Like, you didn't know Penny Parker or
didn't know anything about
it. Spider-Man Noir was going to be there.
I saw images, but I didn't know Nicolas Cage was doing the voice.
Right.
I'd seen images of Spider-Ham. I would have just loved, my only thing there is that imagine having the experience of seeing Spider-Ham and not knowing at all that was going to be in the movie. You know what I mean?
I will counter that with, and I'm not saying one is better than the other, I'm just saying something that I tend to enjoy when it's not plot-driven, when it's not oh, I need to know this for the pure conceit of why this film exists, to a sense. I like sort of the anticipation of when is Spider-Ham I like from a structure standpoint, I like trying to figure out where that's going to come.
Right.
And especially in films like this. Granted, if it was a mystery of some sort that I really wanted to figure out, that would poison me much more when they give stuff away in the trailer.
Right.
For instance, again, I always go back to this, but it's my classic trailers are bad moment of Terminator 2.
Right.
That, of course, meaning that it wasn't supposed to be revealed. With the first third of the movie, you don't know if Arnold is good or bad, but the marketing...
dude.
I know. But the marketing campaign instantly, said, nope, he's good. And you're like, well,
The only thing I would say about that is that... that's not the biggest reveal of that movie, and that's not the biggest thing in that movie.
But could you imagine going in blind?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I totally agree.
Point.
Yeah. And that's what I love.
I'm agreeing with you. Don't argue with me agreeing with you.
I'm just saying that that's not the hugest reveal in that movie. There's one trailer I saw for a movie. Oh, I'm going blank on it. It's by the guy who did Another Earth, and I forgot what his follow-up movie was called. But literally, the trailer gives away the ending of the movie.
Right, which is bad.
And that I was like, because that was what was frustrating about that, and that might have been one of those ones that actually put me onto this no trailer business.
Yeah.
Was that the trailer got me excited to see the movie. I was like, oh, because it's not a big movie, and it was there's nothing much to sort of latch onto for marketing. I had to seek out that movie.
Sure.
The trailer gives you the final moments of the movie as as the reveal. And what it does, the problem is the trailer treats that moment as though it's the beginning of a story, but it's actually the last moment of the film.
Yeah, that's annoying.
And I was like,
I think I just found your hashtag though.
What's that?
Hashtag no trailer business.
No trailer business. No trailer reveals, no
I
trailer
just
wars,
like I just like no trailer business.
no
like
no trailer trash.
No trailer trash.
No trailer
I
trash.
just like business. It sounds so professional.
Speaking of business, we have a couple of tweets.
That's a great transition. That was.
It would have been great if you hadn't
no,
called
no,
it out.
no.
No, see, this is the trailer argument yet again. I'm saying, wouldn't it have been amazing if we just transitioned and nobody questioned it? And
I need to call it out.
And people would have just been like, "Man, he's really good at transitions. He's really smooth. He's got what he's going."
People still think you are, but I just called it out.
Yeah,
so I'm not good at it this time, but I'll take that hit because I wanted to give you a compliment. You were being very harsh to me, giving you positive things today, Shahir.
I mean, I know this is your episode, so you know, I'm interjecting when I can, and I'm stepping back when I can. But in terms of interjecting, I just wanted to say, because last week was kind of my episode. We did Roma, Alfonso Cuarón's film, and we had a lovely tweet from Laura, who tweeted us at OnlyMoviePod, and this was a 3-part tweet, but I'm going to read it out because I think it's lovely.
Okay.
She said, and I'm guessing Laura works at a movie theater. I didn't know that, but yeah, I think this experience this experience at work perfectly summarizes the effect Roma has on audiences. We get a complaint that the screen is frozen, so I go in there to check on it, and the film is fine. It's the martial arts scene. No one else in the cinemas looked bothered, and this gentleman has sat back down, so the person who's made the complaint. I generally think it was a long, unmoving take in the film, and it made this guy impatient. It's really strange, because I would have never thought that scene was frozen. I guess it was maybe because he was being so still. Anyway.
Maybe.
No spoilers for Roma. Regardless, I check the theater regularly after that, just in case. What a conscientious theater worker she is. No problems. When I check towards the end, it's the middle of the beach scene, that's all I'll say.
Yep.
And this guy is on the edge of his seat, chin resting on both hands, completely unaware of myself. I love a slow burn movie that you can take you from I'm not engaged in this to nothing else exists without you even noticing the change. Thank you, Laura, for that email, for that tweet series, basically saying that that's what's so great about Roma is that it sneaks up on you. And then that's what I loved about it. So thank you again for that tweet. And you can always tweet us at OnlyMoviePod or hit us up via email at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com. I was really struggling to remember what our email is because I usually do it the other way around.
But you did it. You did it great.
See?
You did it great. But no, you called it out that time.
I called myself out.
You called it out that time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Laura, for chatting with us. So let's get into a film with into the title.
Yeah, and like I say, I'm gonna hang back.
No, I don't want you to hang back. This is because there's something that's great about this movie, I think, that I also didn't expect, even when I saw the trailer and I was like, oh, this movie looks like fire. Like, I thought I would enjoy it. I thought fans of the comic books and Spider-Man mythos in general would enjoy it. But I think, to be honest, I was shocked when the initial reviews came in because I saw it maybe like a week late, and I tried to steer clear for the most part. Mm-hmm. But everything I saw was like, great film, like all sorts of just super positivity coming away. So much so, I think that Sony just let the embargo go,
right?
Which is obviously a great vote of confidence.
It appeared on a lot of top 10 lists.
Yeah. I think this is a film that, despite being a comic book movie and despite being animated, and despite being an animated comic book movie, kind of transcends all of the stuff, all of the negative baggage that comes with it. In certain ways that I feel like, the Lego movie kind of started.
Yeah.
And now has sort of come to a culmination in this film. Because getting the cynical stuff out of the way, it is Sony. Yeah. It is trying to make a major character sort of in their wheelhouse sort of popular enough to spin off their own things. It's basically making the Avengers, but with 5 different spider people. It is trying to sell, merch and lines of action figures and starting to spin off its own things. And of course it is. But I think if you also, while you're doing that, do what Marvel does in a lot of cases, and it seems like Sony has done for the first time here, if you just make a great movie along with shilling out for those things, with a I feel like a very positive message. I, at least it seems, other critics as well, and I'm interested in your take, will forgive or not, maybe not forgive, but just sort of like realize that the weight of what's important might not be all of those things that the company really wants anyway, but it's more about what the film is trying to say. Just sort of rolling through first thoughts, I loved obviously every little bit of Easter eggs and all that stuff. I'm sure it'll come up naturally as we talk about it, but specifically the greatest, it's not even an Easter egg, just sort of the greatest thing I think this movie did outside of narrative is style. I've never seen a film that looks like this before, or especially from a not only graphic design perspective, but movement perspective. It's a little bit stuttery, but never to the point of discomfort or whatever. It's something that's it's a movement style combined with an art style. Well, actually, lots of art styles, depending, because every spider person that comes in from their own universe is drawn in a different way, which is a gimmick that seems so like, oh, of course, but I can't remember a thing like that done before. And the style of this film actually is so distinct that Sony is trying to patent it.
Really?
Yeah. They're trying to patent the color shading, the type of, basically like whatever they did to make it look like the dot shading or hatch lines halftone. Thank you. They're trying in the motion that they're doing. They're trying to patent the style. I don't know if that's gonna fly. I don't know if that should be done.
The legal brain in me goes, that's not possible.
Right.
But maybe there's some little tiny sliver of it that can be patented.
Look, it's funny because again, every praise I sing about this movie, I'm going to go back with. But Sony's kind of probably doing a dick thing with, like, right. I don't trust Sony anymore.
Right. And so the backstory of the Sony issue here is that Sony, and this is again outlined in that book, the Big Picture, which came out this year. I can't remember the author's name, Fritz or something like that. Which outlines how the fact that under Amy Pascal's rule at Sony Pictures, Sony basically owned the one piece of Marvel that had made them a lot of money. Yep. In fact, Spider-Man basically, propped up Sony for many years to the point where she could make like her her little indulgence projects because of that.
Yeah.
But Marvel basically took a major foothold in that industry and propped up their C-list characters, like Iron Man, into the A-list world of movie making, into big budget blockbusters. And Sony were left kind of holding the bag with this one piece that they wanted to cling on to, and didn't want to sell the rights to, and have tried desperately to reinvigorate, as you've seen with the reboot, the Amazing Spider-Man, and then now the Venom, the basically the offshoot. They tried for a long time to get a Sinister Six movie made with Drew Goddard.
Yeah.
So, Sony have this is basically, Sony went, if you think about the early 2000s, Sony was the behemoth and Marvel was was David.
Yeah.
David and Goliath. And somehow, David is now Goliath and Sony is now David.
Right. But also, I will give Sony a lot of shade when it comes to this entire conversation we're going to have. But, I can also say that Marvel would not be where it is had those Raimi films not done as well as they did, because basically Sony bought Spider-Man the rights from, like, Marvel used to just sell its rights all the damn time.
That book is you should read that book about how those rights ended up there.
But like, it's so like they wouldn't have had the cash to keep their doors open, let alone make a film company.
Yeah,
had Sony not bought and used for the first two Spider-Man films with Tobey Maguire and Sam Raimi, done good on them.
Yeah.
It's funny.
It's still there. It's all three of those films are in the 25 highest grossing films.
Yeah, and I haven't gone back and watched them in a long time. I've watched them a million times, obviously beforehand.
I have recently.
Have you?
Yeah.
What? Really?
Yeah, I did recently.
Why?
Because they're all on Netflix.
Oh, interesting.
And so I wanted to see, because here's my feeling on the original trilogy. Is I really loved the first one. Like when I saw that in the theater, I thought this was fantastic, a wonderful imagination, imagining of that world, really well rendered. I didn't like the second one,
which is insane to me.
Which is insane because everyone, holds that one as the.
I think it's the best.
The best, and I found it pretty boring. And then I kind of just I enjoyed the third one just as a pure. I didn't think it was a very good movie, but I kind of just enjoyed all these characters just coming together in this world.
It's funny, when I first saw the third one, I intensely hated it because I was looking for two again. I was looking for one again. I was looking for let's take this at least with some semblance of earnesty. I won't even call it seriousness.
Earnesty?
No,
I just like the word.
Yeah. And
Earnesty goes to camp.
Yeah, Earnesty goes to jail.
Yeah.
Ernesty's scared stupid. But 3 just, I mean, you could literally tell no one wanted to be there, and and now watching that one again, that's the one I've watched recently.
Yeah,
I actually like it because it's so bad.
It's just it's kind of just. Again, I just like it, but I actually think the Thomas Hayden Church Sandman stuff is actually pretty good.
The retcon of him killing Uncle Ben is stupid as fuck.
It's really dumb.
But whatever. That reeked of studio note. Wait, was it again?
Oh, I was just going to say, but this has also been a really interesting year for Spider-Man because and this is a topic that we cover a lot on this podcast, is that Spider-Man, I think, as a property has been reinvigorated because of the PlayStation game.
It has been, I would argue that Spider-Man as a property has been reinvigorated by the MCU, Civil War, and Homecoming, and then due to Civil War kind of knocking him back into the mainstream visual, I'll say, because he's never gone away. He's always been the biggest seller for the comics.
Right.
Spider-Man PS4 by Insomniac Games has been in development for around 4 years, right around the time that Civil War popped off.
Right.
In that game, I was starting to play the DLC last night. I came home from Into the Spider-Verse, finished my work, and then I was like, I need to be Spider-Man now.
Right.
And actually, funnily, this is all tying together. Super nerdy episode. No apologies. They just released the Tobey Maguire suit into Spider-Man PS4 that you just get for free. So I put on the Tobey Maguire suit and I started the Black Cat DLC. Yeah. And we were fighting around in a museum. And it's amazing that game feels so good doing the same shit over and over and over and over and over again.
I mean, the Spider-Man game on the PS2 was a wonderful game, not because it's a great game, but because they got the mechanics of swinging so right that I just wanted to play just to do that.
Exactly. And catch balloons.
Yeah.
All you want to do is save that kid's balloon. Shout out to the GameCube. So yes, there's lots of aspects that have made Into the Spider-Verse a sellable property, I guess, or a pitchable property that got it to the point of excellence that I think it got to. Shahir, first impressions, I guess. I mean, look, we all of us who talk with you or listen to this podcast know your overall feelings on all of this type of stuff, and it's not always negative, of course, but you take a critical eye to you in comic book film. You dodge the fanboyness as if you have a spider sense for it, and you leap out of the way and try to hit it with some actual film critique truth. So what do you think going into this thing?
Hated it. I think it's the worst movie I've seen this year.
Tight.
Really bad. It was awful. And I think anyone who likes it's an idiot. No, I was expecting us to fight during this, but I really enjoyed the film. I think it's wonderful. And the thing here that you kind of mentioned in your opening about this is that you said despite that it's a comic book movie and despite that it's a animated movie, I think my thing about comic book movies has always been don't care that it's a comic book movie. Don't care that it comes from a comic book property. Don't care that it's an animated film. Is it a good movie? And my issue has always been, a lot of times it's hard for me to gauge those films as they stand on their own because I don't think that they're great movies necessarily sometimes. I think I've been surprised by things like Thor Ragnarok and Spider-Man Homecoming, which are movies that I really like.
Right.
But this was a wonderful experience at the movies. And what I loved about it is that it actually tied into a bunch of critiques that I had of things that we've talked about in the past on this podcast.
Okay.
So the first one was that while I enjoyed Spider-Man Homecoming, I thought it was really sharply made, really fun, really fun addition to the Avengers universe, like small scale.
Gotcha.
I think still has one of my favorite moments I've seen in a Marvel movie in recent memory.
Which is?
It's a big spoiler, so I don't want to, for anyone who hasn't seen it, I don't want to reveal it.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the door open.
That's not how I would describe it, but it's a big spoiler, so
Okay.
I don't want to say it. But it has one of my favorite moments in a Spider-Man movie. But I think I said on that podcast, the thing my biggest critique of Spider-Man in the MCU was this need to redo the Peter Parker story. I was like, why are we doing this again? We've done it 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're getting anything out of this a third time now. And I was like, let's just move on to Miles Morales. We have the opportunity to do that now. And there's something about redoing the Peter Parker story so many times, like in such recent memory.
Yeah.
Like I can understand if it was like, it's kind of like the Batman syndrome where they did it in the 90s and now they're doing it in the late 2010s. There's like a 30-year gap, but it's not that. It's like we get, the Amazing Spider-Man, we got to redo it right now.
Yeah, which was the dumbest.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Dumbest.
So that was my biggest critique, and that ties into another episode we did on Can Batman Be Black?
Yes.
And so I think the tricky thing that I was thinking a lot about during this movie is the way in which Miles Morales' story is influenced by the history of Spider-Man in order to give him, I guess, legitimacy in some way. And you could read it that way, like basically, the question has to be asked is like, why can't Miles Morales just be Spider-Man? Like, why do we need basically Peter Parker to hand off Spider-Man to him?
Right.
And I was sort of wary of interpreting in that way. But the thing is the script is so smart. The script is so well written and so tightly constructed around the notion that this is still a Miles Morales story, but it has a unique interpretation of how all the history of Spider-Man feeds into this story.
It's a mythos,
Yeah.
and it's the same. It's honestly the same way we've taken myth throughout our entire existence as humans,
Yeah.
and repackaged it to be either the hero's journey or a specific kind of tragedy. It's all the same stuff. We're still like Miles's story. I guess this is light spoilers for Miles's story, and I won't go into specifics quite yet. But so Peter Parker loses his Uncle Ben, realizes he has to grow up and be an adult and have some responsibility, and he's always hiding his identity from his aunt. Those are sort of like the 3 things that no matter what, we always come back to. Every iteration of Spider-Man, be it in this movie, Into the Spider-Verse, including Miles Morales, or throughout every sort of version in the comics or other things that we've seen, has an element of losing a loved one and having to hide what you're doing to protect those that you love.
Right.
And how difficult it would be in a sort of a real life situation, to do something like that.
Yeah.
Miles has a different character he's trying to hide this from, his father. He has a different loss, which we'll get into in a little bit. But it's still the same building blocks to this mythology. And that no matter what, and some stuff that it gets to near the end of the film was sort of like the meaning of what I think it all is trying to say, lends itself to being like, yes, Miles Morales is Spider-Man because Miles Morales has gone through the trials that make you Spider-Man.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing here is that the fear of making Spider-Man not Peter Parker.
Right.
I think if you go back to the Can Batman Be the Blackman
Be Black.
Can Black Man Be Bat?
Man Bat.
Episode. I think the thing I was getting at there is, or we were trying to sort of figure out, was that there is an inherent racial component to a lot of these characters that just doesn't seem to be overcome. And I think the thing that's interesting here is the insecurity about making Spider-Man an African-American character, a minority.
Half African-American,
or just basically changing up that configuration. Oddly strengthens the original mythology. Like it doesn't take away from it at all. Like this fear. Like recently Doctor Who got recast as a woman, and there's this entire insecurity about like Doctor Who should always be a man, yada yada yada.
Which is the dumbest shit because Doctor Who in its mythology is literally a body hopping thing.
Anything, right? And then there's always this conversation around James Bond, for example. People want to see Idris Elba in that role, but can an African American, even though not African American, an African English man play James Bond because people believe that it's quintessentially white. And the interesting thing is in some way what this film kind of proves is that this strengthens the core mythology of what Spider-Man is, more so than I think any of the films have done, other than the original Tobey Maguire versions.
Right.
This is about an outsider kid coming to terms with dealing with their fear to do the right thing, and that is the core of what Spider-Man is, and it's regardless of its identity, of who's playing the character, and I think the issue that you kind of have with the Peter Parker mythology is that you get into the sort of somewhat chosen one kind of idea.
Yeah.
And what this film is saying is, no, anyone can be Spider-Man, given you have to be bitten by a radioactive spider. But anyone can be bitten by a radioactive spider. And it's not the radioactive spider that makes you Spider-Man, because Miles Morales instantly gets all the powers. He just can't use them because he hasn't overcome his fear of being a hero. And so I think that's a really powerful testament to what this film is about. Now, aside from that, I think the art style is wonderful. I'm the creative director of a design company, so we think about art style a lot. It reminds me that Ang Lee was so ahead of his time with his version of the Hulk, which basically tried to co-opt comic book framing into a film and was completely unsuccessful. And
right. He made the attempt.
He made the. I think it's odd because I still think about his version a lot, even though I don't think it's a very successful film. But this kind of co-ops that idea. Obviously, it's doing with animation, so it's different. But what I loved about the art style in this is that this leans into the idea that animation opens the infinite possibilities.
Yeah.
And most of the time, what we do as animators, as designers, is we try to create like a singular grounded language for the thing we're doing and try to stay within it.
Yeah.
Because we think that will help the audience kind of accept the suspension of disbelief.
And a lot of times it does.
But what this film does is basically go, well, we're in an animated world, so we are open to infinite possibilities. So let's explore all those infinite possibilities. Let's try different like hand-drawn styles mixed with 3D. It explores the entire possibilities of what being in a digital world can do, and I think it's much stronger for that. And then the cherry on the top of all of that is that ties into what this film is trying to say.
Yeah.
So that's why the style is so successful for me.
Just real quick, I want to jump back because we've referenced two of our old podcasts I think everyone should go check out because I think they're some of our better ones. 110 is our Spider-Man Homecoming one with Bob Chipman, a.k.a. Movie Bob, friend of the show. He's amazing. And also at 119, Can Batman Be Black with Damian Lemon, hilarious stand-up, and Carolina Ravassa, voice of Sombra on Overwatch, and a fantastic voice actor in her own right.
And whose t-shirt you're wearing right now.
I am actually wearing a Hispanglo-Sax. Check out Hispanglo-Sax and her web series. She does a million different characters. It is absolutely a delight. It's a comfy shirt too. Normally, I don't normally like buying branded merch, but I actually saw the type of cotton it was, and two, that it was a lot of it was given to charity based on some schools.
Wouldn't that
for the
be
profits.
A and B?
Yeah, but I like switching it back and forth.
Okay.
Again, Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
So in this particular film, kind of going back into what it is, what it's doing, or more aptly, how it's doing it. It's the perfect blend. It's weird. Like the story itself lets you do all of the things you want to do, but have them mean something. Like,
right.
Because it's the Spider-Verse and there's a multi-dimensional machine that Kingpin is running, basically, I guess we'll start getting into spoilers. We're about halfway through. The conceit of the film is Kingpin is using Alchemax.
Yeah.
To fund basically a hadron collider, an interdimensional gateway to bring back his wife and son, whom he lost tragically because he was obsessed with killing Spider-Man. So he wants to find another. I know he wants to try to find a version of them where they live, which again is not a smart thing. But Kingpin in this film too is not exactly the smartest
He's also the most oddly designed character.
He is the most oddly designed character.
I was like, in the final sequence when he's in the subway, I was like, "Ooh, you're not getting through those doors, buddy."
Yeah, and also there's a scene where he's webbed up, and he just looks like a big splat.
Yeah.
Look, it's fun. I think it's
a choice.
Yeah,
and I don't begrudge it. For that.
His head is also like 2 feet below his shoulders.
Yeah.
Which is it's like if Penguin got real jacked. But because of this, tearing of realities, not only can we bring in all the different spider people, not only can we see the different mythologies sort of coming to light from various stories, but it also thematically and narratively allows you to do Easter eggs without just being annoying Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Like, because they're Easter eggs, they're there for the fan of a Spider-Man thing, but at the same time, they have a thematic reason for being there.
Give me an example of an Easter egg.
So let's see the different dimensions, and it's only seen ever so briefly.
Yeah.
In Kingpin's machine when they're like going through and seeing what dimensions are opening up, etc., are the exact dimensions in the comic book that the characters all actually come from.
Okay.
So like little things like that. For instance, like Earth, the standard Marvel timeline is on Earth 616.
Okay.
The Ultimate Universe, I'm trying to remember, is where Miles is technically from, which is I think Earth 1610.
Okay.
Then Spider-Gwen's E13. Penny Parker is from E14521.
Sorry, I'm writing this down right now.
Yeah, no, good. Noir is from E90214, and Spider-Ham is from
90214.
Yeah.
Man,
I know,
so
close.
Yeah,
and then Spider-Ham is E8311. But like these are things that like don't matter to you. They don't. And they don't matter to a lot of people. They kind of matter to me,
right?
But I would not want them to sort of be ham-fisted.
Yeah. How do they matter?
Because it's the history of where the story is coming from.
How do they matter to this film?
Because they're literally opening the gateways to these things that I know exist in other mediums.
Right.
Some of the comic books you actually get in the movie are from those dimensions.
Right.
Because Spider-Man's not always a comic book character.
Right.
There's even at the end of the Spider-Man 1994 animated series, there's a 5-season run.
Yeah.
Before they butchered it with Unlimited.
Yeah.
Spider-Man actually goes through a dimensional portal and goes into the world where he's just a comic book character, and he meets Stan Lee, and they have I don't know. There's Spider-Man actually more than many comic book characters.
Yeah.
You could argue this with Kingdom Come and all the DC stuff, but like as an individual, has the most timeline hopping.
Right.
Ness to him. So even that has a historical sense of where the character came from.
Okay.
Other sort of things, I mean, small stuff like if you don't follow Spider-Gwen,
yeah,
you wouldn't know some of these nice little things that they like hint at but don't show specifically, like that the relationship that she and Peter had before he then became the Lizard in that timeline, and then he died, and that was her tragedy. Like there's things in here that, because the conceit is dimension jumping,
yeah,
all of these fun things from comic books and other medium, that they're like, no, this is all canon.
Yeah,
it's here. And it makes narrative sense that it's here. It's not just like, hey, by the way, Stan Lee's over there, which it has that too.
Yeah.
But
I think the most impressive thing about all of that is the way in which it draws that entire historical mythology into a new story. Right?
Yes.
Like this story, Into the Spider-Verse, has not been written in a comic book.
It has, but very poorly.
Right.
It's not nearly the same.
Right.
It's not focused on Miles.
Yeah.
And this is focused on Miles. And I think that the Into the Spider-Verse comics, I found didn't have, and sadly, a lot of the big Marvel crossover stuff in the comic books barely has emotional resonance anymore. Because it's too big. They don't focus on one character or a handful of characters. It's kind of everybody.
Right.
And here they found a good a focal point.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that I think the thing that I was sort of maybe being somewhat dismissive of is that the mythology doesn't feel important to me, because I think the screenplay is so good at making sure that this is Miles' story. And it comes back to that point that I was making earlier about how the trepidation I would have about that is the sort of maybe desire to hand off Spider-Man to Miles from the previous characters, but it doesn't actually feel like that. It feels like this is Miles' story. It just happens to coincide with this larger mythology, but it doesn't, like, for example, older Peter Parker, played by Jake Johnson, who's a character I think is really, really well done.
I do too. I was worried when he was cast.
Yeah, and I was like, I loved what they did with Peter Parker in that, in that scenes. I was worried that basically it does that thing, which is that we're doing the new character, but really it's through the eyes of this older character that you're familiar with. But it doesn't feel like that at all. It feels like Peter Parker is a secondary character in this film. He is there as a side character. Miles Morales' journey and the journey with his family and his fear is front and center in this film. And so I think the remarkable thing here is all of that mythology, which I wouldn't have ever picked up as being accurate or from some other place, is funneled into this world really seamlessly. Like it just feels so effortless, and that's one of these things that Phil Lord and Chris Miller are really good at. Wait, there's one thing I want to point out here, is that Phil Lord and Chris Miller did not direct this film.
No, they wrote it.
Yeah, and I think it was only Phil Lord that wrote it. I know everyone's going to kind of brand it as them, just like Tim Burton was branded as the name behind The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Right.
But I just want to, it's Bob Persichetti, Peter Ramsey, and Rodney Rothman.
Three directors.
Yeah, three directors who directed this, who are part of the Lord and Miller universe, of filmmakers, that whole production thing.
Yeah.
But I really, I know this will easily get branded as a Lord and Miller because they're the biggest names attached to it.
Sure.
But they're not the only piece here. It makes me wonder, though. What would have happened if they had been able to really take the helm of Solo?
Oh, it would have been amazing.
Yeah,
there's literally no question that Solo would have been amazing. It just wouldn't have fit the mold that Disney wanted.
Isn't that sort of a testament? Because this is basically taking an existing property and revamping it and giving you something fresh and new and giving it more up, and is more true to the origin of that character.
Yep.
But if you don't trust your filmmaker,
but it's the perfect storm of big corporate shit, right? Because Last Jedi came out, and that was something where I feel like they gave it to a director that they let do choices that they're going to retcon anyway because they're scared. And then there was a mixed review, which may or may not have been Russian trolls. And then they're like, oh fuck, and they realized how far off the deep end Solo had gone, even though it probably would have been amazing. Though that I'm going to now devil's advocate myself. It's so easy to say like, oh, that thing that didn't happen was gonna be great because we can't judge it.
Yeah.
But then they watered down what they did and they played the safe bet, and then they they paid for that a little bit too. Not that it didn't make money.
Yeah.
But
I think Lord and Miller, again, I'm just going to use their names, but again, what they did with the Lego Movie, what they did with 21 Jump Street, and Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, I think just demonstrates that these are two people that you should trust.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you should just have faith that they know what they're doing, kind of thing.
Yeah.
The interesting thing here is that the film kind of also gets into this notion that Spider-Man is for everyone. And it's universal,
and that's why I think it would your fear was abated of the here's Peter Parker passing the mantle to Miles Morales. That doesn't happen because the central conceit is anybody can be Spider-Man.
And in all these multi-universes, everyone hasn't interacted with each other, and they have their own stories that feel rich and true to who that person is. And I think that opens up the Spider-Man mythology in a way that I don't feel... it's odd because I think I've been reading a lot about political correctness, identity politics, and that sort of thing this week. And the sort of conservative argument against those is that they diminish the ostensible value of something by opening it up to everyone, right? Like it's this idea that like political correctness is basically the notion I can't say this thing that I used to say, and therefore you diminish my ability to have an argument, right? But the actual liberal counterpoint to that is by opening it up and being inclusive and identifying how everybody operates in this, you get to a truer and richer sense of what the argument is actually about. And it's the same with this, is that by opening this film up and saying Spider-Man is just not this one guy, he can be everyone, it is truer to what I think Stan Lee and Stephen Ditko wanted to make Spider-Man about. It, and the quote at the end of this film is, anyone who offers to do the right thing is therefore the true superhero.
Yeah.
I think is truly resonant in this film.
And that's the thing. You got to look at Ditko and Lee when they came up with this. They're looking at this through their very white New Yorker lens. So they wrote what they knew.
Yeah.
And they had some progressive ideas in that, but they're still white New York straight guys. So, like...
Even the people who created Miles Morales are not African-American writers, right?
I don't know the actual... I don't know that.
I saw a picture. Someone, please correct me if I'm wrong there at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah. But what's interesting... that gets tricky. And this will come up in our eventual art versus artist thing, maybe, but, like... Here's the question: if a character is written a certain race by a different race of character, but the writer did the research and you couldn't tell that the character was written by someone other, like, is that okay? Is that appropriation? Is that respectful? Is that
I think the key word is the last one you just said, which is as long as it's respectful.
Yeah.
Then and acknowledge the deficiencies in perspective that one person might have.
Yeah.
I think that is entirely not only appropriate but should be encouraged.
And then also there's the discussion too. It's a bit of a microcosm to that specific thing. It's like, okay, but it might also be considered dismissive if I was like, well, okay, one race of person writes that same race of person, and then that is sort of seen as like the definitive version of that race of person, when three other people of the same race could be like, well, actually, that's not my experience. So, like, there's microcosms even within that. It kind of even goes back to what you were saying, right? Like, when you box something in and you keep putting more and more boxes into things, it does sort of it's I guess, I mean, obviously I lean towards the more liberal leanings. It can diminish the value. I don't know. I'm getting lost in the weeds.
The proposition here is like the proposition of every superhero film is that doing good is righteous unto itself. Like, people who do good, or people who should attempt to do good because it's better for the world, right? That's the proposition of every superhero movie. And I think what this film says is that proposition is strengthened by inclusiveness. You know, it's not diminished in any way. You know, the Doctor Who haters who think Doctor Who can't be a woman, or James Bond can't be black, or, you know, Batman can't be black, or anything like that, think that you will diminish the mythology of that character. But that's not the case. It actually strengthens the mythology of that character, and it moves it forward in a way. And I think that's what's so powerful and what's so resonant about this film, is that, you know, like, a young brown kid can look at the Spider-Man mythology and say, that is my mythology. Yeah. You know what I mean? And not feel excluded from that mythology, and feel that mythology of trying to do good and be brave and be heroic can be now my mythology as well.
And also, I will say that in 2018, with everything sort of going on as it is, everything is not as cookie cutter in our stories as it once was. Let's look at the original Peter Parker again. It's two very, you know, he has the death of his parents, but he's taken in by two very supportive, loving aunt and uncle, and then there's tragedy with that uncle, and then yada yada yada. The two major players, it seems, in Miles Morales' life are his father, who is a police officer, and his uncle, who we discover, and again, spoilers, an engineer, but is actually the supervillain, the Prowler. Yeah. And that plays, and even before you realize that in this film, you see that the dad is very one way, and the uncle, I've dealt with this my entire life of sort of family members and whatnot. The uncle is like the cool one, but if you're younger, you just think it's cool. Yeah. If you're older, you're like, there's something off here, because they're not like my point is this. His family dynamic is much more real to me than Peter Parker's family dynamic is, because it's filled with not just nice stuff.
Yeah, and it's written so nuanced and performed so well. Yeah, you know, like, it's that opening sequence where Peter Parker, look at what I just did there. Miles Morales is taken to his private school by his dad in a cop car. Who I've been going through this experience with my son right now, which is like, you know, like, and I'm doing this to my kid. I was like, you got to say I love you back. You got to say I love you. Like, I want to hear it. That is so charming, so endearing, and so real. Like, the other thing that bugs me about superhero movies, and one of the ones that I love is the Nolan Batman, but I think does this problem, which is such a nail on the chalkboard thing, grating to me, is that nobody talks like a real human being. In the Batman movies, for example, they all talk in like ideologies
Platitudes.
and philosophy, and they're all just like, like you've got to do this to become the Bat. You must instill fear.
It's not who I am underneath.
Yeah, yeah. It's
but
like
when I do, that defines
I was like,
me.
who talks like this in any context? But what I love about this is like people have conversations in this movie and they feel real and genuine. Like the conversations with Uncle Aaron, like are about what it's about strengthening that relationship. It's about these two people that are completely comfortable with each other. The fact like we see why Miles goes to Uncle Aaron because he allows him to express himself through his art, the graffiti, the tagging,
where his dad's yelling at him to take stickers off of signs.
Exactly. And I think that's all done so wonderfully in this film. It's like it's so well executed. And like to the point where that whole thing about like it's a comic book movie, it's an animated film, none of that matters. Like if the writing is good and if the execution and the intent is good, none of that stuff matters. Like if superhero movies, in my estimation, were like this movie, there's no reason to box them off into superhero movies. They're just movies.
Sure. Well, I've wavered back and forth on the boxing versus the unboxing of that. But no, this and another thing, we've talked a lot about the art style in particular and the message behind the thing, but both of those things I don't think would be as resonant if not for, honestly, one of the best voice casts I think
really
that
strong.
I've seen in an animated film this year.
Big actors for like small parts.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Miles Morales, Shameik Moore.
Yeah, so good.
So fucking good. Obviously, Jake Johnson. I love Jake Johnson.
I remember that from the Jurassic World episodes.
But the when I heard he was going to be Peter Parker, and before I knew it was kind of deadbeat Peter Parker, I was like, this is not correct because he has a type.
Yeah.
But then that's the type that it was, and then it worked out.
He's pretty much playing the character from the New Girl, right?
Kinda.
Yeah.
If Nick from New Girl was Spider-Man, and let his life just slip down the toilet. Haley Steinfeld, whom I worked with at the EMA, we both did.
Yeah.
So that was interesting.
She's having a big year, right?
Yeah,
Bumblebee.
Bumblebee, which apparently is getting good reviews.
Yeah, apparently, if you just make something that speaks to what Transformers speaks to,
it's amazing. Who knew? Who else? Marshala Ali.
Marshala Ali.
Amazing. Just fucking killing it there. I fell in love with a very small twist in this film. It's from my quote in the beginning, and it's the reason why I did it. Valerie Octavius.
Right.
Played by Catherine Hahn.
Yeah.
Who I did not see that coming.
Yeah.
And there have been female versions of Dr. Octopus throughout the thing, but like I just didn't see it in this.
It's funny because Spider-Man, Peter Parker says, I should really examine my biases, my inherent biases.
It's in his plan. It's in his like, okay, we're going through the plan. I'm going to go through the window. I'm going to head to the main scientist. That's not the main scientist. Miles says, oh, well, and then I've got to check my biases. And then he goes on to the rest of the plan. And it's like, that's so clever and so true. And then you find out that this crazy-haired, very well-designed sort of scientist character is fucking Doc Ock. Yeah. And I was like, that was my jaw drop moment of the thing. I'm like, oh, so there's, even though I know a ton about this mythology, I still can have.
Did you see her in the trailer?
No.
Okay. Because I think I watched the trailer. Maybe I'm mistaken this, but I thought
she's not in the trailer.
Okay,
unless it was like a final trailer that I didn't watch or that came out after the fact. I just want to, and obviously Nick Cage was phenomenal as Spider-Man Noir, and John Mulaney as Spider-Ham is absolutely perfect. And finally, Chris Pine.
Oh, I was going to say finally, the one that really stood out to me was Brian Tyree Henry as Jefferson.
Okay.
As the dad. Now, the reason I think that's an amazing performance is that Brian Henry, who we saw in Widows earlier this year, and is fantastic in Atlanta, always to me plays like a younger voice. Like he feels like a younger guy. And in this film, his voice is heavy set, deep, and feels very fatherly. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I just haven't heard him do that voice, or I still struggle connecting the image I have of him as an actor with that voice.
Sure.
So I just thought that was a really, really amazing choice, given that what I know of that guy or what I know of that actor is kind of like more like Jake Johnson.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and he plays like an older, mature, hand on the shoulder kind of dad.
That's a copy.
Which I really, really liked.
I did also want to shout out to Kimiko Glenn, who played Penny Parker,
Right.
who like has not as much to do as I feel like Noir, Penny Parker, and Ham don't have a ton to do because they're kind of comic relief, but they all have moments in it. And then like just if you're looking at the voice cast, it's insane. Like the small part. So obviously
Lily Tomlin
plays Aunt May. Chris Pine plays Peter Parker, like the perfect one that dies.
Yeah.
Liev Schreiber plays Wilson Fisk. And then finally, Zoe Kravitz is Mary Jane. And you're like, shit.
And she has like one scene or two scenes or something like that.
And then Oscar Isaac
yeah.
plays Miguel, Spider-Man 2099 at the end.
Going back to the history of this podcast, my man crush Oscar Isaac.
Yeah.
And I was like, when
you heard him?
Well, it was funny. No, it was funny because I got to, I stayed for the end credits obviously, and I watched the end scene.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was his voice, but when we looked up the credits this morning, I was like, oh, Oscar Isaac. This is going to be so embarrassing if I ever meet the dude.
No, it's going to be great. He's going to listen to all these episodes. So the amount of sheer talent, voice, art, producing, I honestly think this is, weirdly enough, we don't talk about producers a ton on this podcast. And I think this is a film that could only exist through a really great producing team.
Yeah.
Because there's so many
There's so many hands, there's so many cooks in the kitchen on this one.
Yeah.
But it still feels entirely seamless and cohesive in a way that a lot of films with like singular auteurs or filmmakers don't, so it's kind of incredible.
Yeah. The executive producer is Will Allegra, obviously the producers Avi Arad, and a couple here and there. I mean, I'm looking at this list here, like Brian Michael Bendis, executive producer. So that actually has some credence to the Spider-Man stuff.
Why?
Because he was a writer on it for literally ever.
Okay.
10 years maybe.
Okay.
But then it's funny. You look at the list. I mean, Amy Pascal.
Because those are people that are associated because they own the property.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how much they're involved.
No, that's what I'm saying. But like, there's in this list of what looks like 10 or 11 people that it says produced by on IMDb. I see 3 or 4 that like actually I'm like, oh, these are trusted names in my Spider-Man media creation.
Right.
And that's something that in Amazing, you didn't have. A lot of, or this, that, and the other thing. So I don't know. I think it's important to sort of throw that out because this is such a complex thing. To have the emotional resonance it does requires a few steady hands that go beyond individual scene direction or art style or voice work. And editing's real tight as well.
Tight, real tight, real lit. It's real lit.
It's real lit.
Now, can I talk about some criticisms?
Yeah. Well, we should because I have 1 or 2 as well.
Yeah, these are minor, but there's one thing about the art style. So again, I love the art style. I love the execution of the art style where we get these interspersed 2D drawings within 3D worlds, where 2D elements are integral to the 3D world, where it feels like an entire pastiche. And again, what I love about that is like the exploration of the language of the design. Like it's something, if you watch like a Pixar movie, even like The Incredibles, for example, which would be the closest analog of this, they establish like a real design world and they stay within that world, like pretty locked in.
Yeah.
And what I love about this is that this world seems open and, open to interpretation. So I love that. But there was a thing in my projection, and no, it's not in my projection because I've went and read about this later, where they do this. One of the design choices that they make in this film is that they choose to do focus through anaglyphs. In 3D world, that's basically the splitting of red, green, and blue in order to create depth.
Okay.
And in the script, when I was watching it, what they do in order to create depth is that they basically anaglyph the backdrops. So it makes it, and if you're watching it without 3D glasses, it feels like an unresolved 3D experience.
It looks like Bloom, or what is it?
No, so when you're watching 3D and you take the glasses off, and basically the colors are split, and when you put the glasses on, the colors come together. That's the technique is called anaglyphs.
Okay.
And the way that this film creates depth cues is by using anaglyphs. Now they do it as a sort of conscious style choice that fits in with like the you might have seen anaglyphs in, well, not anaglyphs, but the same technique repeated in comic books when comic books are misprinted. Because comic books are printed by colors,
right.
and when the paper gets misaligned, you'll see like the little edge of red kind of like split off just so slightly, and they use that because it fits into the world of comic books and design. That's what you would see. But to me, when I was watching it, like for the first 30 minutes, I was like, I should go up and tell the projector. The projection is that they're playing us the 3D version, not the 2D version, because I don't want to see the 3D version. So it's a choice. It's a choice that distracted me. I don't think many people would notice. Nobody in my theater.
I didn't particularly.
But it's just the way that like normally a 2D film would do depth cues by using focus.
Right.
So like you would just throw something out of focus, and what this film does is it does that, but it also splits the color wheel of things that are meant to be not in focus. So I didn't love that choice. And just from a pure sort of like usability kind of thing, I think it was kind of an interesting one. And then this is the most backhanded compliment I will give to this film, which is that I just wanted to see more of it. And by that I mean, like, I felt this film, the thing about this movie is it is, like you said, really tight. It is really tight. And it doesn't, like, it never overstays its welcome. It's really just moves at a blistering pace.
1 minute 57, 1 hour 57 minutes.
1 minute 57. Jesus.
Yeah. Whoa.
That's like the length of a trailer. But it never overstays its welcome. And the only issue I see with that is that some things do get shortchanged. And I think in the case of this is Fisk.
Yeah. Oh, he gets nothing.
Like he's got this sort of big emotional arc, and I was like, I was watching it going, I really get his story, and I really get what he's trying to do, and I like it's one of those good emotional beats where the villain is actually the good guy in his film, like the good guy in his perspective, and I was watching it going, I think that would be an interesting idea of him like bringing back his kids and then realizing, or his wife and his child, and then having to deal with the consequences of them glyphing out or glitching out or something like that, and realizing the errors of his ways. And I think there's an opportunity there that I would have just. I think I could have seen more. More of this movie. It could have been longer.
Yeah.
And that's a testament to how good the movie is. But then smartly as well. I think, again, they sort of really orientate this film around Miles and make it a Miles story.
Yes.
And Miles doesn't get shortchanged at all. Again, I could have seen more of Miles, but more of his journey. But the movie is so snappy, gets out of the way really quickly that that's my biggest complaint. That and glyphing in the back, anaglyphs in the background. If those are my only complaints,
I hear that, man. I mean, mine was. It took me a minute to sort of get some stuff. I thought Fisk got shortchanged, and I could have liked a little bit of more of that. But also, I think when Miles is first going through his transformative stuff, and he gets like the comic book stuck to him, you see his roommate reading the comic books and everything. I didn't realize. It took me a minute to realize that those comics had sort of come through. Because he sees the Peter Parker going through the stuff. He's like, that's sticking to the thing. Let go. Like that, like stuff in the comic book. But people were not supposed to know who Peter Parker was.
Right.
And then I was like, it happens after the event. Like things have crossed over, etc. I thought that was, again, this is my minorist gripe, but I was like, that doesn't quite match up. But sure, I like the moment, and therefore it's fine. And then again, every choice that sort of happened, I was at the end okay with it. Like, Norman Osborn dies. Green Goblin's dead.
Right.
And I was like, wow.
He's also a monstrous figure in this film. Like,
I know.
He's like, he doesn't look like any Norman Osborn we've ever seen.
He looks like the Ultimate One.
Right.
He transforms into a giant, demon monster.
Yeah.
And he's dead. And then obviously Peter Parker Prime or whatever is dead.
Yeah.
But then I was like, wow, Kingpin killed them. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then because of Kingpin's story and the reason, he back in the day he was fighting Spider-Man, and then Kingpin almost killed Spider-Man. Then his family almost saw him murder a guy, and they ran away and got in a car accident. That makes sense why Fisk would just fucking kill him now, in his weird twisted way. So as the story was told, most every minor gripe I had was like, oh no, this makes total sense.
Yeah, it's really minor. The other thing I was thinking about, and it was because I've been playing the game, obviously, and I really enjoy the game. I think the game has does that sort of thing, which is that it repeats action beats all the time.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, but it's still fun to
It's
play.
incredibly repetitive, but I don't mind something that's repetitive if it's fucking great.
Yeah, it's fun, and I do really enjoy it. But I was listening to Yahtzee on the Escapist.
Yeah.
I really like his reviews, and
He's a good guy.
He pointed out one thing that I think had been subconsciously, aware of, but not really, was this idea that Peter Parker is always looking for father figures. You know, like he always finds the wrong father figure. You know, that's who Norman Osborn is to him. That's who Doc Ock is to him. And Peter Parker's major issue is that he needs to get over trying to search for a father figure. And this film, Miles Morales, has a father figure. You know, like he has basically essentially 3 father figures in here, and none of them are tragic. None of them are tragic father figures. They are all father figures who are trying to guide him towards being his own person. No one is.
Prowler is a little.
But Prowler even acknowledges, like, Prowler doesn't realize that he's doing that,
Right.
And he acknowledges, I let you down, like, and I don't think, but he's like, he wants Peter
I see
Parker
what you're saying.
to be, the best he can be, kind of
He wants
thing.
Miles to be, yeah.
Miles, I did it again. Look at that. I got to check my biases. So I love that this film kind of does that, and I love the relationship between Jefferson and Miles, and I hope that relationship doesn't sour and go the way of like Jefferson becoming a villain or something like that, or Jefferson dying.
Yeah. Well, in some of the versions, his dad does die.
I'm sure it does, because that is good.
In the video game, spoiler alert.
Oh yeah, it is true.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in this, it was so refreshing that it wasn't that. Like it was just this loving father who is stern but wants his kid to succeed. I wish we'd seen more of the mother. I love that Lily Tomlin's Aunt May is kind of like more of a Q figure to
yeah.
She's not just this sort of like maternal loving, I'm there to like dust you off guy.
And I love that when they show up, she's like, "Oh, alternate dimension."
Yeah.
Because she's been through this shit.
She gets it all, and she's Q. Like she goes down into the basement where all of this stuff is. Nick Cage, who is the mythology with Nick Cage is Nick Cage owns a Spider-Man 1.
Yes.
And he is like a hardcore comic book fan.
Yep.
And so like I just kind of like imagined him being like, "Oh, what do you guys want to do, man?" And like, and just being like, "Yeah, all right, yeah, I'll do Spider Noir, I'll do it."
Yeah, he had such fun.
Yeah.
I mean, the man changed his name to be after Luke Cage. Like, there's
Right.
like, it's just that's who he is, and it's such a great.
Yeah.
I love the Rubik's Cube gag.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
how I'm going to end my final thoughts. Is the black and white character is
Yeah.
fascinated with the Rubik's Cube,
I don't understand this thing, but I'm going to take it.
but I'm going to take.
Yeah, I love it. It's so good.
It's a great film. I think everyone should go see it in the theater. Everyone should go rent it or get it on VOD when it comes out. I'm gonna buy the Blu-ray because I'm a I'm a physical media snob.
Yeah. No, I am too.
That's a film I'd also like to get in 4K if I ever get on that train.
Right. It's difficult because we're in projector wheel right now, and 4K projectors are like a difficult thing.
But for instance, like there are certain films that I think are visual feasts that I am buying like the ultimate edition of to then have 4K when I eventually make the jump.
So you're buying 4K without having...
I have 3 4K discs right now.
Can you watch those in 2K? Like, can you take the disc?
Oh, and up and down convert them?
No, and just play it in your PS4.
No, it comes with different versions. So like I have it comes with like the DVD, the Blu-ray, the 4K, and the whatever, like for
What are
like
the
$10 extra
films?
dollars. It was Infinity War.
Okay.
It was what was the other visual? Oh, I think Mother. I have in 4K, and maybe I only have 2.
Okay.
This would be I think I was thinking of this one being the third,
Right.
Because it's gonna be great when I get it.
And oddly, my thing about the use of the 3D cues.
Yeah.
I think this would be a good 3D film.
I'm curious to see it in 3D. If I during the holidays, if me and my mom go out, she likes 3D movies.
Oh yeah.
So if she wants to see this, I'll go again in 3D and I'll report back.
You have to report back on your mom as well. The side story is I bought your mom a gift because she was very kind to
Oh yes,
and
that's
I'm
right.
we need some reviews back from her. So long story short is Matt's mom did me a favor. And I wanted to repay her by buying her a movie that I thought she would like, and so I did the Shahir algorithm on like what is a movie she likes.
We had like a 30-page text conversation.
Yeah, where I was like trying to figure out what Matt's mom would like, And so maybe we'll fill this in on like what the movies were and what the choices were at some point. But I gotta hear back.
Yeah, but that's my final thoughts. I mean, I think everyone probably knew where I was coming from with this, but I'm glad that my naked fanboyness didn't have to even remotely be used because it is an honor. It is not only honoring everything that this film is about from a canonical or mythological sort of standpoint, but it also ties into a beautiful narrative about discovering your own self-power, no matter who you are, and that you're not as alone as you think you are.
Yeah, and those are classic Spider-Man stories. It's not doing anything new there, but it's basically rewrapping it in an interesting way. And again, just by making it, like even meta-narratively inclusive, like the white character. I hate framing it in terms of race because it's not about race.
No.
It's about opening the box to everyone.
About multiple types of, not even just multiple people can do the thing.
Yeah. And like basically opening up that world to everybody strengthens that mythology.
Yeah.
In a wonderful way that I think, it's sad that Stan Lee has passed away, but I think Stan Lee, if he would approve.
He definitely knew this was coming.
Yeah. But I think he would, I think he would watch this in the theater and smile and be happy that this is out there because I think it does good for the world.
Yeah. Well, this has been the only podcast about the film Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Shahir, when you are not visually articulating the word thwip as you swing throughout New York City in the PS4 Spectacular Spider-Man, where can folks find you?
You can definitely see me overstuffed into a Spider-Man universe a la schlubby Peter Parker at www.shahirdaud.com. Matt, when you are not viewing the world in all 4Ks, when you don't even have a 4K eyes, where can people find you thwipping for the world? I lost it at the end.
It's okay. You can find me installing robot vision into my own skull at matthewkrol.com for my life and works, or Skeletor, the number 4, PREZ on Instagram. Also, Extra Credits, still doing a lot of good work over there. We've just started the saga of Sun Yat-sen over on Extra History, who is the Chinese revolutionary. Dude had like 13 failed revolutions before actually being the father of modern China. It's fascinating. Also,
never give up on your dreams.
That's a very Spider-Man thing. Yeah. Also, Krampus episode just came out. It's super fun. So go check that out. Extracredits.com.
And now we haven't made a decision on what our film for next week is going to be, although I think we've got a bonus episode in the works, so I won't say much.
We might spoil it.
We haven't made a decision on what next week's film is going to be, but there are a lot of options out there.
What are they?
There's Aquaman.
Aquaman.
If Beale Street Could Talk.
If Beale Street Could Talk.
Which I think we're going to do If Beale Street Could Talk anyway at some point.
Okay.
And there is Mary Poppins Returns.
Yep.
Oh God, there's probably a few more of these.
Aquaman is one of those movies that I want to see before I want to commit to reviewing.
Yeah, I feel like I just want to watch it on DVD when it comes out, on Blu-ray when it comes out.
On 4K when it comes out.
I don't know if I want to... Like, here's the thing with DC. You fooled me more than twice now, and I'm like, if I just keep repaying you, I'm the idiot. You know what I mean?
Wrong.
So the other one is Bumblebee, which is the same thing, which is I hear is great. And it's good things about it.
But, like, there's been 3 terrible ones.
Yeah, more than 3 at this point. There's been 5.
Well, the first one's good.
Yeah, I do like it.
So 4 terrible ones.
Yeah. And so it's like, okay, so we do that. Mary, Queen of Scots. I'm really curious about Welcome to Marwyn, the Robert Zemeckis
I am true, but I don't trust it.
Yeah, and we haven't done The Favorite yet.
I would love to do The Favorite.
Yeah. So if you have an opinion about what we should be reviewing next week, please email us in at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com or hit us up on Twitter. Maybe we'll do a Twitter poll or something.
Maybe, because actually we're going to have to view and record later in the week next week due to the holidays. So we have time to do that.
Yeah. So let us know what burning thing you want us to see. Oh, Lee Chang-dong's Burning.
Yeah.
We still have to do that.
See?
So there's so many...
great.
This is why Aquaman is at the bottom of the pile.
Aquaman.
Yeah.
Let's go talk some fish. Anyway, we'll no matter what we choose, we'll swing into your ear holes next week.
Or swim. Or swim.